We're gonna open up this planning board meeting. Hello? 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 We're gonna open this planning board meeting. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag, United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
Thank you all. All right. No minutes.
No, I don't have any minutes. I got behind, but Leslie's been working on them. She has done a wonderful job, and I'll have 2 minutes for you next meeting.
Fine. We have to hold a public hearing on this?
We do for the banker savings. Yeah, there was public comment at the last meeting, but it wasn't officially noticed as a public hearing.
So we'll start with that.
Yes, we can if you.
It's not in minutes, but that's fine. I mean, the meeting agenda.
I put it after the
The
application.
All right,
but-
I got you.
So, but yeah, if you want to.
All right, first thing we're gonna do is open up a public hearing for comments on the Main Street Bangor Savings Bank. Go ahead.
Griffin,
Make sure you state your name and everything.
Lizette Griffin, President of Damariscotta. Live in 60 Main Street. I sent you an email, but I don't know you receive it.
Let me see. You sent it today?
Yes, I
I
did.
hadn't seen anything. Yes, I do. I've got it.
Okay. I'm sorry,
I
you
have
didn't
not
have
had
any
time to
copies.
read
I
it.
couldn't get, huh?
I have not had time to read it.
Oh, okay. So it's about the boundaries that we, we're in dispute with the bank.
Yep.
I'm not here to stop the project. I'm gonna be really glad that the project is done. Really, I want to put this behind me. But I want you to just, I read the 219 pages that I sent, and I found some flaws. And I would like you to, please bear with me. If you see exit 4, page 2 on their plan. Exhibit 4, page 2. That's what they show with the tax,
It's a deed, correct?
is it?
Did you say exhibit 4?
That's what I
Yeah.
have here.
Exhibit or.
You know what? I'm sorry. I'm using, I guess, the February,
And that's.
and
that's
March is
fine.
the one that, because it's the same.
The applicant, I found some discrepancies in the application as well, and I let the applicant know. They have given me, I've got 3 hard copies here, and also 3 hard copies of the plan, so. Depending on which version we're looking at, there might be some
Exhibit 4.
discrepancies, and just for the
Said.
boards. For context, this all kind of happened last week. I think most of it was that there were some duplicate sections in there.
So it was, and just speaking from here, clerical error, when we were updating the application, we had multiple copies of the same section. Most of the attachments and the exhibits haven't changed. Any of the updates would have been through the text of the application and then on the plan set itself. But yeah, so the information that she's referencing should also be in the new application, just once instead of twice.
Yeah, and this is the plan. This version is the one that I'm assuming we're looking at.
Yes.
And the only question. What I was going to propose, you want,
Jonathan should have. Is this more current?
yes, this was the applicant just brought these today. There should be
I
duplicate.
don't have one.
No, this one we just got this.
You should have one to reference.
No.
I've got an electronic version.
But it has everything. There's just a couple pieces that are duplicates, right?
Yeah, so what I was gonna say is, the findings of fact that I put together should align with what they've provided. I don't think any of the changes are substantive really, But what I was gonna suggest is if we go through all of this and assuming based on the findings of fact that the board's comfortable with it, and wants to approve it tonight, which is up to you. I was gonna say condition is just to give me an opportunity to go through and make sure that the findings of fact are consistent with what they're submitting now, just so that we have everything, consistent. Because I don't think it's like it's not like an update to the plan with nothing's really moving. So I say to what you had brought up, some of the pages may be different, but hopefully what you're referencing, we should be able to find
Okay.
and,
Okay.
work with anyway. So,
Okay, so what I'm references the map, the tax map that the I would say Bangor Savings, provide. And in page 4, it gives all the coordinates and the bearings for Griffin Lane. Formerly was Foyer Street. And right in, there's a sentence over here that says, I'm sorry, I'm nervous. This appears to run the distance from Main Street to the river and the approximate location as shown on the tax map. And that's what I'm here showing the tax map. And in their map over here, this is Griffin Lane or Foyer Street. They are claiming the 20 feet buffer is their property.
I think what she's referencing is, this is Foy Street and Griffin Lane.
This plan is invalid without an invoice, seal, or this spare, whatever. But it says that it's invalid if it doesn't have a seal or the surveyor signature. So yes, you write that, but it's invalid. So what I'm saying is that the buffer, I'm disputing the buffer.
Yep.
And I think that it shouldn't be called a buffer because it's not like they don't own. I'm sure they own some part of the buffer. I'm not saying that 20 feet are Griffin Lane, but I believe that at least 10 to 12 feet of those 20 feet that they are claiming, they are part of the Griffin Lane or Foyer Street as it was called before. And that's exactly what they are saying over here. They are practically showing the map. They are giving the references. They are giving their coordinates. And the coordinates, if you see in the survey that they are showing, they don't match with the deed. So I'm here not to stop the project. I'm happy that the project will go through, but I really would like to have an amendment on instead of buffer, has to be a Griffin Lane or Foyer because they can approve it. I can approve it yet. My surveyor is going to, I already have a contract with a surveyor and then we're gonna go into the dispute. But I want to make sure that, and I don't know if they have to have setbacks from the parking lot because it's not a private road, it's not a public road, but it's a private road.
Mm.
And I explained everything to you in the email, but I'm
Okay.
sorry it was late, so.
So I think the way that I understand it and the way that I think that this can work and that everybody hopefully can be satisfied is the board, I recognize, and I think the board can appreciate that property line is disputed by Ms. Griffin, and that's fine. The planning board I think the planning board has to make sure that the the application is proposing, development on property that the applicant controls. And I think that my understanding is that the applicant essentially is staying away from disputed land. And so that what they're proposing is on land that is any part of their plan on land that you're saying is yours? Or is it just that line?
Well,
you're
I
saying
think
is
that,
on
I
your
think what they are saying is they have a buffer of 20 feet.
Right.
And that's what dispute is,
Yeah.
right? So they already including that buffer as there in their plan. And like I say, I'm not here to, you know what, I mean, I'm glad that this is gonna be over, really. I mean, I'm spending a lot of hours researching everything. But my concern is that by they claiming that there's their buffer,
Mhm.
then, really, is avoiding Griffin Lane is just, it's not the right word, but deleting Griffin Lane and 4th Street from that project.
So, so there are some things in the ordinance that talk about a buffer and there's certain required setbacks. We probably could use a different word for what they've got there. It's a cushion or something.
Can we
That,
call it Griffin Lane or 4th Street? That's what it is?
yeah, right, well,
You could call it an approximate setback.
yeah, I mean, it's the ordinance doesn't require that they have 20 feet on that. So it's not as though there's a property line and they have to be 20 feet away or 10 feet away from it. That's just, at least what they're saying, I think, is that's their property. And and you're saying it's your property and that's fine. That's,
Exactly.
the town doesn't want to get into whose property is it? We know it's not the town's property. And they're not proposing to build on that property. So I think that the planning board is safe in moving forward and considering the application, recognizing that that property line may not actually be there. But because they're not proposing, assuming that you're in agreement, they're not proposing anything on your property, other than that buffer, which they're not proposing to build anything on. As long as they're not proposing anything on your property, then I think that the planning board can be
But I
comfortable.
would really appreciate if it's called what it was before, because it's really Griffin Lane instead of putting the buffer. Because if you put a buffer, it's already indicating that belongs to them. And that's when I have
Yeah.
if they can change, if you can change us, instead of saying the buffer, I mean, what it is, 4th Street, that is being since 1814.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I don't know if they want to put, Griffin Lane or 4th Street on there. But what I'm saying is we were kind of saying that that's a moot point is beyond here on beyond what they're showing is, to build here, whether the property line's here or here or here.
So there is no setback. Sorry.
There's not,
No.
yeah.
There is
The
a setback.
findings of fact that you prepared, I don't think you mentioned buffer.
No, not that buffer or any buffer, I
I
don't
don't-
think.
It's not mentioned in the findings of fact by the town.
What I did say, put something in here.
But he did mention that there was a piece of land in dispute.
Yeah.
I don't have any of that, so
So-
I guess that's no problem.
This is on the website, but I can,
But here, why don't you take my copy? I've read it.
Michael, I'm looking right now and I don't see where we actually label it as a buffer. I think we dimension it just to show that
Yeah.
20 feet off of the contested property line.
yeah, I
I-
need to
I
mention
didn't
it.
really see it in here mentioned as a buffer.
It's not, yeah,
I
it's
think
just,
that it's been more described that in the sidewalk.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and I may have called it that, which is on me. I was, using kind of colloquial language. It's just that what they're showing is what they're saying the property line is at least is 20 feet away from, in some parts. Obviously here it's probably a little bit less, but it's 20 feet away from where they say their property line is. So I think the important thing is, I mean, I think it sounds like you want to just be on the record as saying that that's not the property line.
Exactly.
And but I think for the planning board, the important thing is to just make sure is what they're showing as far what they're building is that's not on your property.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm convinced it's not, because you and I had a conversation, you
Yes.
showed me your property line.
Yes,
And it may, your assumption may be off one way or another some, but they're still dramatically further back from her property line.
Right.
So.
It's 20 feet, what they claiming 20 feet.
Yeah,
But so, in the parking lot doesn't have to have any, it's no, setback through a private street or private line.
no, we did, I did look into this and I think there's something in here about, what, like Court Street, what the connection between Elm Street, it's kind of I think it's an informal street. Everything back there is semi-formal, or just not at all formal.
Not at all formal.
Yeah, and so what the ordinance doesn't require setbacks requires setbacks, I think, from public streets. It does it might function as a street that like Court Street, parallel to Main Street before it turns.
I was thinking about Griffin.
About
Lane.
Griffin, yeah, but I think the same logic applies to Griffin Lane where there may have been requirements for parking to be set back from property lines. But I mean, the way the parking is now, I mean, it spans property lines, so it's kind of an existing non-conformity that I mean, the board can certainly consider, but,
Again, 20 feet. Well,
yeah, no,
there is no,
And
there is no set.
There is no setback.
yeah, I don't think there's anything required. I think that what you're proposing, even if the property line was 10 feet into your property, right? I don't think it would
Right.
affect whether or not this is, and again, this is, this is my opinion. I think the planning board ultimately has that decision, but even if that property line was closer, it's not going to impact this proposal, I think, is still approvable.
Okay. Another question that I have, when I was in the walk, and I overhear, somebody from another board talking to you about where is going to be the park,
Right.
the public park.
Yeah.
And that makes me a little bit nervous. I say, oh, they're gonna have a park. So are they planning to have a public park over there in the green area?
Yeah, I think I remember the comment that I remember having a discussion with somebody. There's going to be green space. My understanding is it's not going to be dedicated to public use. The public doesn't technically have any right to access. It's still private property owned by the bank. So,
Yep.
So it's not gonna be like later, we're gonna give you this to the town and then the town is gonna use it as a park. And then they won't be able to exit anywhere but some of the other.
Right, no, not that I know of.
The town couldn't do that
Yeah.
anyway, because there's no public access to it.
Yeah.
Town can't do anything like that.
So, yeah, as far as, I mean, unless there's been conversations that I haven't been privy to, there's nothing in the record about it. Whether there are, people go back there and, use it like a park is kind of up to the property owner to.
And that will be my follow-up question. I have been living in Damariscotta for 25 years and in town for 12, 14 years. And at the beginning, and I think I shared that with you last year, there were a lot of drug use right in the back area, a lot. I was calling the chief of police every time. He was very good. We were looking for needles. So my next question will be that they're gonna they are aware of a possible problem. And they're gonna they're gonna have lighting, but who's gonna take care of that green area when with the drug? I'm concerned about that.
Yeah, I think it's the same. It's going to be the same situation as it is now. It might be a bit more inviting, but also I think it'll be clearly more cared for. Like right now, it's a little bit of kind of no man's land back there. Hopefully this will seem a little bit more deliberate and people will think like, there's a chance that someone's going to come by here and people care about that space now. But if anything is going on back there, like anywhere else in town, and you see it, you can go.
This project doesn't prevent you if you see something suspicious or anything like that from still calling, that's not what this is, so.
Oh, and I understand that. I have done that. It's my neighborhood. And I care for my neighborhood. And I really, I'm the one who's been always calling the police and making sure that that we are in a good, safe environment. And that's our goal. That just want to make sure that, I'm disputing that I don't want to be called the buffer because it's still Griffin Lane and Foyer Street, and that's my goal.
Yep.
And I send you an email and you got.
I don't believe so. I can
I
make
have
sure that I.
there.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't.
And you can see that the only reference to that area is that there's a dispute.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So that's in the findings of fact.
And did you say that that's the document that you have?
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is the findings of fact that Michael prepared, going through all our ordinances and how this project
Yeah.
meets the requirements.
I'll read you what I said. Rights and interest in the property are addressed in the application. The location of the property boundary, Griffin Lane, between the project site and the abutting property owned by the estate of Joseph Griffin is disputed by the estate of Joseph Griffin. However, the area proposed to be built on by this application is not being contested. So,
Yes, exactly.
got that in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So, because I'm
We're good.
yeah.
We're good.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm Wayne Moore, Murray Hill Tropical.
You just come up because there's a microphone here that'll,
Oh, sure.
I'll get you on the record.
Wayne Moore, Murray Hill Properties. I'm the abutter on the other side. And I just want to go on record saying to the board, I'm happy with what they've done with the swale and the buffer next to our property. So just wanted you to know that.
Do nothing but improve things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
Thank you.
that's all. Yeah, you're welcome.
Anybody else? Okay, I guess we'll close this public hearing. And, go to work on the findings of fact, I believe.
Okay.
You said you had some things you wanted to review in there?
Yeah, there was a couple questions and comments that I had. And also just want to kind of get it on the record. Okay, so I think I already mentioned that I went through the application and there's a updated version, which is here. I think I just put the updated version in the electronic file, so you all have access to that. This and the two that I just gave you and 3 of the drawings here. So we've got that there. Like I said, there were some inconsistencies, but we've got all of everything. And I already explained kind of the option as far as if you do want to approve it, condition that I would recommend is let me go through and make sure it's all consistent. Okay. The parking as a primary use, there were some changes that you went ahead and made as far as the parking as a primary use. What I had said to the applicant was I recommended that they get rid of some of the parking spaces. One, there were 3 parking spaces in front of the dumpster enclosure that just don't mark them as parking spaces. And then also on here,
Does this- Put that up so I can.
So this one does show, but I did see another version where you had so this one shows, here's the parking enclosure. There's 1, 2, 3 spots that overlap it. And I said, if you just don't strike those, that gets rid of 3. And then also show, strike 3 or 4 others as snow storage, which they would have to designate just because of the ordinance already. So they're not changing where the curbs are gonna be, really just changing where the striping is. And I appreciate that may be something that's a nitpicky for me, but I want to make sure that we stay within the boundaries of what uses are allowed and aren't allowed.
Chair, are we able to address these as they go through, or you want to hear that?
Yeah, let me just, and then you're, they're welcome to address it. So what I said was, it doesn't require any physical adjustment, but it will avoid the question of permitted uses altogether. And I said, I know that I accepted the logic that the language under a certain section of the under unlisted uses and land use ordinance would allow the planning board to allow parking as a primary use as a conditional use. But after reading the language and thinking about it, I said, the language addresses uses which are not listed in the land use table, which primary parking is listed as in the land use table. And 2, allowances and adjustments relating to land uses are reserved for Board of Appeals. So I think that the changes that you made, I'm very happy with, because otherwise I think that the zoning board of appeals is the one that says, yes, you're allowed to do certain uses here or not. It's listed in the land use table. It's listed as a not permitted use in the land use table in this district. So it just makes me very uncomfortable to have the planning board say, basically to vote uses are being allowed in a district where the ordinance says they're not allowed. So I think I found a reasonable compromise around to allow this plan essentially to go forward. So if you have comments on.
Does anybody else have any comments on that?
You're good. You want to hear what the applicant?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for the right, I'm just. We're fine with the 22. I mean, we've been working on this for about 4 years. And we worked hard to get additional parking spaces because all we keep hearing from the downtown is whatever the additional spaces. So it will limit how much additional spaces we can provide. We were just kind of surprised when we saw the new ordinance, because that's fairly new, I believe, in this ordinance. And I'm not sure the downtown merchants know about that restriction or reducing.
This one through public.
That's fine.
Even challenging that. I think
I'm not challenging it. I'm just,
inappropriate.
yeah, okay,
This is the town's ordinance. It went through the town,
that's fine.
the town
So
meeting.
we're fine with striping it that way, and so we'll do with that.
You have anything else on?
Yeah, so, erosion and sediment control, you did identify that you provided the erosion and sediment control. The question that I had was about a contact. I assume, I looked through, I assume that Daniel Diffin, who's listed as the site design and permitting of Sieve Mar Engineers, Inc., will be the person responsible for implementation of the erosion and sediment control.
Well, we would update that, just because through construction, there'll be contractor. They're typically,
Yeah.
the ones who are designated
Yeah.
as the ones, but as the owner of the facility, Jason Donovan,
Okay,
who is.
And he signed the application.
Yeah, he signed the application. He's the facilities manager at Bangor Savings Bank. Would ultimately be responsible for that. And he would be the one named.
Contractors have to be licensed, showing zoning anyway.
and that's, this is just in the ordinance, it requires these things, which I agree. This is something that really is more appropriate for like a building permit.
Right.
But this ordinance wants it now, so
Yeah.
until I can fix it, I
Okay.
just want to put Jonathan Donovan in there. Jason, sorry,
Yep.
that's what I wrote down, Jason.
Yep.
So, and I know I've got his phone number and address, so I will update that.
Great.
Instead of Daniel Diffin.
Instead of Daniel Diffin. Yeah.
Dan works with me. Is one of the engineers that work with me. He's one of the principals.
But he designed it, or he.
You design, okay,
Is the principal of the firm who stamped it.
okay. That's why I pulled his, and I wanted to.
No, and that
confirm.
makes sense, but I think that's an easy correction.
Yeah,
Makes more sense
very.
than Jason.
Absolutely.
Yep.
You confirmed the parking dimensions, and the last item that I shared with you all that you think were going to address or be at least prepared to speak on was the site access. The site access, the way that it is existing, but if someone was going to be building a parking lot new, which I know they're not, the site access, I don't think is adequate. I'm not really sure. I just want to highlight that for the board. I don't know what exactly
Wait, what kind of access?
the access, the automotive access to the site. You know, the way that you're getting into the site is, and I don't know how wide it is. I can't imagine it's 10 feet between the Bangor Savings building and the Chapman & Chapman, I think, is the insurance that's here. One way in and the exit. I know there's 2 drive-through lanes, but they're both drive-through. It's not like there's a way to go around. If there's 2 cars in there, not an exit. And then Griffin Lane, obviously, we know that's not an entrance or exit anymore. for the way that it's being laid out, Court Street is essentially, functions as two-way. It's probably the best two-way access for all of this, but it's narrow. I believe the bank has 10 feet, but I think there might be more. An update. I know you spoke with one of the.
Yeah,
the-
and we've worked in agreement, so we're gonna maintain it and,
Yeah.
and clean it up. Cause it really needs to be fixed.
Yeah,
I think at one point that road was one way, right?
Court Street.
Court Street?
I don't think so. I'm not sure remember that.
Yeah, we're not proposing any changes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to identify that, not so much because it's because there's anything, I don't know, what I had mentioned was if the entry at the Bangor Savings Building was in and Court Street was one way out, then this circulation would make sense. But that'd be if it was only their driveway, because that to turn Court Street one way, I think would be a problem for
Right.
Problem for
the
everybody.
neighbors, right? So I don't think there's a good solution. I think this is kind of, it is what it's gonna be.
All those accesses are what they are and have been historically,
Yeah.
and this is an improvement to an existing parking lot and a reduction in the amount of parking lot. And a reduction in, some of the traffic in and out of there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a win-win all the way across the board. If you want to make note of it and the findings of fact, that's one thing, but
That's,
there's no reason to really argue the point.
no, I just wanted to bring it up. There was one, one of the requirements is a demonstration that access to the site will be safe. And there's somewhere else. And so assuming that you're all comfortable with it, that's fine. I just want to make sure that,
I mean, if they were building a brand new parking lot.
right,
That'd be
right.
one thing,
that's,
because then we can look at the access and say, well, you can make this different, or you can make that different.
Yep.
There was no way to make this.
no, right, well, that's, I think is, I was looking at ways to try and
Yeah, no, I got you, Mike.
formalize it or make it so that it was good, but I think this is probably as good as,
Who's it gonna get?
it's not perfect, but no. So, okay, and then there's just a couple other things that are mostly regarding, I think, conditions of approval here, or can be addressed as.
Well, there was lighting.
Yes, so,
What else was there?
and that one, they requested a waiver for, so I've got the language in here for that.
We need to fix that lighting issue.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
I don't
There's a
know
lot
what
of
the-
things.
What is
but-
the process to fix that? It's gotta be fixed.
Ordinance change.
Yeah, it's an ordinance update.
It is.
and-
We're gonna have to do it.
Yeah.
So,
That's-
but abutting properties are residential.
That's, I wanted to ask, like, are they residential, are they mixed,
Well,
or,
it's,
Well, there are some.
I know there's residential uses on them, certainly.
but there's residences, all those buildings, those tall apartment buildings, all back there, plus, yeah.
Yeah. So,
But we have no, light spillage over, that's the big
Yeah.
criteria.
yeah.
We meet the requirement of the property line.
Yeah,
There was just a question.
and if, it's not like I need a formal, it sounds like you're saying, yes, they are residential.
Well, there's
It's,
some residential. in
it's a
it,
mix.
Not a lot.
it's mixed, and that's, so your
There's no
feeling is that they
apartments
would
in
have to
Bank
meet.
Building.
No.
There's no apartments in Best High. To the best of my knowledge, the
Yeah.
next one over does,
Yep,
and the Griffin House does.
And the Austin House,
yes.
When you say.
That's,
the Austin House?
that's next to Best High.
Yeah, that's what I was talking
Yeah.
about.
and then over,
And I know there is or will be
right
a
there,
dwelling unit here. I know there's dwelling, I think there's dwelling.
yes, of course, that's all at the top floor,
Yeah.
that's all dwelling.
So, I guess my question was, is a property that's not exclusive, because the way the ordinance is worded is, it can be a little bit weird. Properties that are not exclusively residential, or but do have residential uses in them, are residential, is that your feeling?
But we
Yeah, I
still
mean,
meet the order.
Those apartment
Yeah, no,
buildings-
then this is not for.
Okay, so it's a separate
this. Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if that's the case, that's fine. I think that the waivers for the proposed lighting, I think it makes sense, and we'll vote on that when we get to the end of it. In here, I think you mentioned it, during nighttime hours when the activity is not occurring, exterior lighting at all commercial and other non-residential properties as a condition of approval should be required by the board to be turned off. Is that something that you can?
We can turn it on and off, but in response to Lizette's concern,
Yeah.
if we see remnants or issues, then we can either put them on photo eyes or keep them on a little longer. It's more safety. for the
Yeah,
neighborhood.
right.
I would tell you, I think it's a safety issue if you turn them off all the time.
Well, that's the, I have it in here in this draft as a condition is they get turned off at night. What are the hours? But that's why I wanted to bring it up with the board and
It's supposed to be-
see.
They could be on motion detectors.
Well, it's likely that they're going to be on timers.
Yeah.
So that they'll be set to go off at a certain time and set to come on at a certain time, and that can be adjusted.
Yeah.
Depending on whatever, if there are issues, the bank is more than happy to accommodate the town, the neighbors,
Yeah.
whatever works best for the area.
Yeah, so the ordinance basically says to have a condition that they are off at night, but I wanted to give you all the opportunity to adjust that if you felt like it was necessary to
My
adjust.
opinion is they should be turned down
Well, and I
and
think,
not turned off,
I think they
but
need,
they're already so dim. You can hardly see anything in there because they're not lighting ordinance.
Well, they're not gonna follow, well, they're not gonna
My
follow at
opinion.
least the levels for the lighting ordinance,
it's
so.
also unfortunately right by the river, which is, and there's a lot of sensitivity to
Yeah, but
marine life to
they
have
can't-
spill over Village Lake.
Yeah, but we don't spill over on that side. They cut off fixtures.
Yeah, okay.
So that, which is, that's why, right now, the condition that I have in here is during nighttime hours, which I thought you might want to define, I put in 10 PM to 5 AM. Exterior lighting shall be turned off per that section of the ordinance. That's, yeah, however, whatever you all feel comfortable with, I think would be fine. But is 11 PM to 5 AM?
Yep, I'd be good with
Good
that.
for you all. And it can be adjusted. I think I'll put a note in here that can be adjusted,
And
as,
then you got the folks from Best
Yeah.
Buy that are gonna have to leave after their shift is over and stuff like that. They're gonna moving around out there.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of street, like CMP streetlights. There's town streetlights.
Oh, back there?
Yeah.
there's one, I didn't even see it come on,
Or they're-
when we were out there. but
So they got those, what's the matter with just leaving the lights on?
Because it's just adds more like.
So let's leave it at the time that we talked about, and it can be adjusted by these folks if need be, rather than beating this thing all night.
Yep. Okay.
11 to 5, and after that, if they want to put them on, eyes, turn them back on. If you have motion sensors on them, if there is an issue, somebody goes out there, the lights can come on.
Yeah, I'll just say,
You'd like to do
they
that?
can consult with the code enforcement officer to adjust.
Right.
Okay, there's,
Excuse me. Will the neighbors have any saying on that, about the time and everything? I'm sure you're gonna hear from us if it's overwhelming light, so we will have a saying.
well, that's why I suggested goes to the code enforcement officer, so that way,
Just go to the bank, just talk to the
Yeah.
branch manager.
Yeah.
that's,
Good people.
yeah. I figure there's no reason to bring them back before the planning board, but at least you get the code enforcement officer in there to play mediator. As needed, okay. Okay, then there is a section in here about noise and the limit of noise. It doesn't really require it as a condition of approval. It's something that's come up in other parts of town. It was like, we don't have a noise ordinance. It says it in here. Do you want to include it as a condition of approval or
No,
not bother?
you want to have that in there?
Parking lot making noise?
Well, and it's the whole property, but
Think about it.
yeah,
No.
don't worry about it. That's fair. Okay.
Can I comment? I'm sorry, but before there used to be a group of teenagers that used to park right their parking space and at the back, and it wasn't noisy, and they were drinking and all.
Call
kind
the
of
police.
things.
That's
Yeah,
all.
That's
we
what the
did
police
that.
department's for.
We did that.
Yeah,
But when I talk to them, they say, well, this is bank's property, it's not your property. So I can go to the bank and tell them,
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And they'll.
Yeah.
In that case, go to cops.
And I don't think that this would apply
Yeah.
to rowdy teenagers on their property.
It does not.
So, okay, let me just, no changes of access, is, we already discussed, okay. Turning lanes, is it necessary to provide turning lanes and traffic controls to safeguard against hazards to traffic and pedestrians and or avoid traffic congestion?
I say they've already done that.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, avoid queuing onto public streets. I don't think that queuing's been an issue so far, so. Does the proposed parking area provide safe, convenient, efficient access for vehicles and pedestrians? I'm just gonna, unless you say no, I'm just gonna assume yes. And then we get to the waiver, for the curbed like planting, end caps.
Well, its size doesn't warrant that.
Yeah, I wasn't in
Well,
here.
the size is big, there's just not many spaces in the size, I mean.
Still doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's based on space.
Because each 40 space or fraction thereof parking area shall have landscape to accommodate both parking and stormwater management, whatever. They requested a waiver from it because
All right, we'll give them one.
What are those little,
painted.
Those are just-
These striped areas are gonna be painted, which I think is also given that they've got these, I mean, there's a lot more green here than in their proposal than what exists. I think that they're kind of meeting the spirit of this, and also as far as snow removal and stuff, that this is gonna be much more practical. But that's also for you to decide.
Okay, so you got a waiver for the lighting,
Yep.
waiver for
The curbed
the curb.
buffer, end cap, parking end caps.
Big islands.
Yeah, thank you, landscaped islands, I think that's it, let me just. Okay, and then all I want to do is, is there any riprap proposed at the shoreline?
Nothing along
At the shoreline, no.
No,
No,
okay,
just removing the asphalt and
Yep.
grass.
that's what I thought,
Going back to green.
and no retaining walls are being proposed, right?
Mike, back to the waiver for the island.
Yep.
This project doesn't even apply to that requirement, so why are we giving them a waiver? It should be not applicable.
You don't think that it applies? That's,
No, their parking lot's not 40 spaces or bigger.
well, is it only
They're
for?
not 40 spaces bigger.
If you all don't think that it applies, that's fine.
They
The
need,
ordinance applies to large lots, 40 spaces or more.
Okay. All right, so then we won't even bother with it. Okay. I can't find it
just the
now.
lighting.
It's on page 18 of 30.
So then we'll get rid of that. And I'll just put a note in there that you all think that those standards don't apply to this. Which is totally fine with it. All right, then. Historic preservation ordinance. The front building is in the historic preservation. It stops at the back of the building. So I said that it isn't in there. If you disagree, let me know. And then I went through floodplain management ordinance, and what they're doing is also seems consistent with that, which I put in here, and you want to go through it, it's fine.
Oh, very thorough. No question.
So let me just see the conditions. There's some standard conditions in here. The two conditions that are kind of specific to this is the lighting between 11 and 5 a.m. and the approval of this application by the planning board is conditioned on a subsequent review by the town planner that the final application submission reviewed today is consistent with the findings of facts here, just that what we've just got is consistent. So that's also up to you if you want to keep it in there. Other than that,
what about 10?
About what?
The light.
It's already agreed on 11 to 5. Can't bring it up once it's agreed.
11 to 5.
yeah, so they'll stay open, they'll stay on till 11, come on again at 5.
People working and parking out there, they need it. And it's not bright anyway. Not bright enough, to really be useful.
Well, hopefully these will be, they're not gonna be But the 2.5, I think,
It's pretty
I
dark.
think it goes up to 2.4 candles or lumens. At the highest, so. All right, so. Do you want to have any more discussion on this, or do you want
I
to?
don't.
Are we thinking we feel like approving it? Is
Can
that?
somebody make a motion for the waivers?
Oh, yep, that's.
We're down to one.
Just the one.
right?
Yep.
One waiver.
Do you want me to read it, or are you comfortable with the waiver for the lighting?
Go ahead and read it how you have it written.
Well, it's what they submitted.
Well, it's the photometric.
The applicant
plan.
successfully requests a waiver from, it's on, page 13 of 30.
Yep, thank you.
Can't make a motion, so. But I don't know.
Yeah, you have to wait for one of us to catch up.
I'll just say the proposed lighting levels reach 2.4 foot candles in parts of the parking lot, where the maximum is 1.0 foot candles, and at the property lines, maximum of 0.1 foot candles, and it reaches a maximum of 0.3. And that's it's like at best high, where there's other lighting anyway. I don't think that's a. So that's what the standards are in the waiver request. It says the applicant respectfully requests a waiver from the following site plan review ordinance section 102.6 D4A, which requires a maximum of 1.0 foot candles throughout the parking lot. The number of light fixtures required to provide a safe level of site lighting while meeting the maximum allowable lighting intensity is unrealistic and cost prohibitive. The average light intensity in the parking lot will be less than 1 foot candle. That's
I
the,
move that we accept the waiver as read.
I'll second it.
Or that either that or represented in the findings of fact.
Yeah,
So,
go either way.
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Yeah.
so I don't know how you want to do it. I think if attorney got their hands on it, they vote on each one of them separately. I will just tell you what the conclusions are. The conclusions of law here are the proposed project meets the requirements set forth in the land use ordinance for financial institution, including the dimensional standards, general provisions, which include parking standards and conditional use standards, and the requirements set forth for conditional uses under section 1019, which are certain requirements met. The use meets the requirements of Articles 1 through 8 of the land use ordinance and the requirements of the site plan review ordinance, and the effect will not be adverse. The proposal will not have an adverse effect on health, safety, or general welfare of general residents or general public. So that's one, that's the land use ordinance. 2 is that it's consistent with the site plan review ordinance. 3 is that it's consistent with the shoreline zoning ordinance. 4 is that it is the historic preservation ordinance is not applicable. And 5 is that it's consistent with the floodplain management ordinance. So,
Typically, we used to, first of all, decide it was complete.
yeah, that's
And then
you're right.
second, approve it. So is it the same system?
I think voting to decide it's complete is right.
I'd
I should have
start
got
right
that in
there,
there.
Wilder.
That's a motion. Yeah, I would move that the application is complete as presented.
A second,
I'll second it.
all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay,
My recommendation would be to at least have a vote that it's consistent with those ordinances that I listed, and then have a vote to approve it separate.
That's the right one from a 2-step system to a 3-step system. I would move that the application is consistent with the
Land use, site plan,
how
shoreline.
about just go with the conclusions
Conclusion of law.
Okay.
And the findings of
Let's
facts.
just make this a little quicker.
Great.
Okay,
Motion.
got your motion?
That's it.
Do I have a second? All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay,
And then you want to vote to approve it
I think that we can do that if I get a motion out of
Yeah,
somebody.
yeah, I just,
So moved.
Second,
With the caveat that as listed in the findings of facts, that the, planner reviews the new submission tonight, is make sure that that's in line with what we thought it was gonna be, as listed on page 29 of 30 in the finding of facts.
so I guess the motion would be to approve, conditional approval. Approve with
we'll
conditions.
approve it till you
That's what it
go
is.
through that.
Okay.
Okay, do I have a second? No, that is a second.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Okay.
Certainly our pleasure to proceed.
Okay, so we'll let everybody get cleared out here a little bit.
Who we got next?
That's, yeah, I'll,
Oh, yes.
that's fine. I appreciate that. This is the
Yeah.
65. Okay, hang on, right. I will try and get back to you Wednesday, if not next week, about with the decision and all that. I just need to go, I need to go through this. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Timeline on when this might be done. Did you have a timeline like?
It's gonna be this summer. The intent is to get started as soon as we can.
Sure.
They've already talked to the contractors, trying to get this lined up. We wanna get it done in the season. We wanna get it done before Pumpkin Fest, so. That's the timeline right now.
Good old Pumpkin Fest.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I gotta plug in. It'll work a lot better, won't it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, you do it else and forget. Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay, findings of fact within Standpipe Road. Yes, okay.
Thanks.
This, just for your context, this is the, I guess, the third meeting, third review of, or sorry, this is the second review of 3. So ideally we get everything kind of wrapped up here, and then the next meeting we'll do a public hearing.
Are you
Yeah.
referring to Standpipe Road?
Yes, this is Standpipe, assuming we're ready to move on to that.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do.
And so basically the final vote will be at the next meeting, but this is, yeah, meeting 2 of 3. I know you've been through it before, just wanted to throw that out.
Right. I guess
All
you
set?
can go ahead and start.
All right, great. My name's Kevin Clark. I'm from Sightlines in Brunswick, and we're representing the applicants, Mr. Levi's and Benjamin Bentry. We're here for a preliminary planning board application. And I'll give you a quick rundown of our team. We have myself, I'm the surveyor of record. Our senior engineer, Joe Martin, has done the engineering design on the project. We've used Basswood Environmental for the wetlands, Peter McCready for the soils, and Mark Sensei for hydrogeology on the project. Project's about 24.4 acres. It's in the rural zone, which requires 80,000 square foot lots and 200 feet of frontage, which we've provided on all of these lots. A portion of the properties in the resource protection overlay, which more or less aligns with the inland fisheries and wildlife's inland waterfowl and wading bird habitat. Lines vary a little bit. We put the shoreline zoning line on there offset from the upland edge of the wetland, which is also our property boundary. And that aligns pretty closely with their the state's mapping, which could be off a little bit because theirs is based on aerial photography and not on the ground surveys. We're proposing a 2.44 acre conservation easement along that that property line, and the I guess the best word would be a bog, a swamp, whichever you would like to call it.
Have the wetlands been delineated by a licensed, wetland scientist?
Yes, that would be Eric, who I spoke of before.
You mentioned the lots are 80,000 square feet.
They exceed 80,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think their recent, ordinance allows that you can have a second home.
Yes,
So.
Yeah.
That doesn't have to be in your open estate.
no.
I just mentioned that because.
And we are addressing that in the homeowners association, the sizes and so forth. And I can update you on that, because there's still some coordination with that. So right now, we're proposing, using the lot density subtractions and so forth, we would be allowed 9 lots. We really couldn't configure it due to the topography and shape of the property. So we were able to design with 8 lots. We're proposing just over 20,000 square feet of new impervious and about 1,600 square feet of wetland impact, which is not in that bog. It's just a small strip of wetland that runs through the center of the site. There isn't even a stream in that. It's just the ledge comes down from 2 directions and there's just a wet strip that runs through the middle. As I said, we're preparing a homeowners association documents, provided those, but we are making some modifications of those as we move forward. We proposed the name, Fox Hollow Lane. I'm not sure of the process. Is that something that you get approved through 911, Mark? Mike, or do we contact them? Yeah, for the road name.
You'll go through the code enforcement officer once you get it approved, and he can.
Oh, okay, we don't need to have it approved before we approve the subdivision.
I think the ordinance wants the planning board to approve it, but.
Okay,
And we can. But
okay.
officially,
Well, I can make contact with him
Yeah,
before the next meeting. That's what we want. So we're proposing that to be a private road. It's 1,000 feet long, 18-foot gravel. We've designed it at a 9-foot maximum grade where the ordinance allows up to 10 on the private road. We're doing a water line extension with a new hydrant. It'll have underground electric and cable along the roadway. And we were planning on all of the driveways coming off from the new road. You included that as a condition of approval, but that's rather typical nowadays to come off from the new road and not have 3 driveways or 3 entrances in that stretch of frontage. Stick to one entrance for site distance purposes. Soils, each lot will have, they've all been tested and have suitable locations, and based on those locations, we've had a hydrogeologic assessment and there's no offsite impacts. Stormwater management plan, we've graded the road, and the stormwater from the roadway goes into 2 grassed, under-drained filter fields or filter basins, which the water from the runoff goes through the grass, and there's sub-material under that helps remove any pollutants, and then the water drains, is collected in pipes in the bottom and then released downstream. That's being reviewed by Cumberland County Soil and Water Conservation under a contract with Knox and Lincoln Soil and Water Conservation. One thing we did discuss, or we've had some discussions since we got your memo, was about the performance guarantee. And we felt the 18 months was a little short, especially if it's starting at the time of approval. The ordinance allows 3 years.
okay.
And we would, also like that to start when we apply for a permit to start the construction. Because it could take a while before we have contractors that are available and all that gets worked out. And the cost is, I think they're proposing to do a bond, but I can't speak to them, but they'll coordinate that after approval. Right now, the budget's right around 490,000. And that total budget includes some expenses that have already been paid. The design work, soft costs, the design work, the permitting work, those things are already coming out of that total. So I'm going to expect you know, we're looking at a guarantee of somewhere around 450,000.
And I imagine we could have it, you know, basically start from when you pull a building permit. So and what I'm just thinking about is the planning board's approval is going to be good for a year. And it can be extended,
It's only good for a year.
yeah.
Okay,
It is for subdivision,
usually
it's
some
different. I mean, basically subdivision
is
is just done.
Yeah.
So we could talk about that, but I'm sure we can work
Yeah,
out.
yeah, just wanted to bring it up so that we did get the conversation going on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Based on our design, we're gonna ask for 3 waivers. One is for street trees, which we didn't think was appropriate since it's a wooded site and it's gonna be a rural private road. The second one was a landscaping plan. Is, you know, the lots will be individually cut and landscaped after they're constructed. And the third one was to put rebars instead of concrete monuments at the angle points of the roadway. That's pretty typical on a private road as opposed to a town road. And usually the standard is on town roads, it's usually granite now instead of the concrete, because we find that concrete does not last as well. Gets a little salt on there and they start to disappear. But
Just on that, I think the second two make sense to me if you're all okay with the waiving of the landscape. They're not proposing to build anything. It's just going to be natural for now. And the monument, you know, like whatever is the current standard, I think is pretty reasonable. The street trees, I looked at that and said, I'm not even sure. The language in here says street trees, esplanades, and open green spaces may be required at the discretion of the planning board. So
I don't think that should even be a waiver.
that's, yeah, I was thinking it's.
I'm fine with that. The less waivers, the better, but I just wanted to make sure
If that's.
we
if you
brought it
all-
up. My first run through with this ordinance, so I didn't want to make any assumptions.
Fair enough.
So I'll move on to put together a little location map here, which you can see. I can't see it, but you can see the Back Meadow Road, Biscay Road, and Standpipe Road. You can see a little bit of the Route 1 bypass out there. So the yellow outline is basically the shape of the property. So you can see that bog that's in the rear. That is also the wading bird habitat, which we have provided a buffer to. Next slide is the property that sort of boundary of the property that shows the wetland locations, which are this hatched area here. And then the bog in the rear, and there's a little pocket up in the front of the field, up in the front corner. And then the steep slopes, which are probably due to ledge, and all of the test pits that were taken. Next slide is the actual subdivision plan. It shows the 8 lots, all of the geometry for the lots, bearings and distance, curve data, easements for the stormwater basins and for CMP transformer pad sites for the underground electric at the corners of the lots. And they usually place one for every 3 to 4 lots.
This is going to be underground electric.
It'll be underground electric, yes.
I think our ordinance requires that. Yeah.
It does require it, yeah. The applicants had wanted that. That's what they're familiar with all of their other projects, so they would just wanted to do that, and then when we started going through the ordinance, it turns out that it's required in the new ordinance, so that's kind of groundbreaking.
Yeah.
And then put in a copy of the plan and profile for the road. You can see it'll be grading up at 2% from the road and then cresting and then going downhill at 9%. There's some ledge cuts down here towards the end. This one stormwater treatment area is there, and the other one is down here by the turnaround. And go back for a second, and we'll also be placing a hydrant down here by that turnaround area.
So it's going to be a gravel road.
It'll be a gravel road, yes.
And how wide?
18 foot, I believe is what the correct width is for the ordinance. For private.
Foot shoulders, if I got it correctly.
Yeah,
Yep.
so it's 18 foot travel way, so it ends up being 24 feet of gravel and it's in a 50-foot right of way. And erosion control plan, which I don't know if you can see the small red lines, but all of the work area is outlined with siltation barrier, which is either silt fences, hay bales, or some type of silk sock material. And there's a construction entrance, which is some, at the entrance is heavy crushed stone, so that if the trucks are going in and out with the mud on their tires, that helps knock some of the mud off before they get out on the road and track it up and down the road, which can tend to get as slippery as ice if it's a wet day and there's a lot of clay in it. So we include that to try to prevent that. That is really the end of what I've got. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, you answered all of my questions already.
Right.
So was there like were GIS coordinates established for the wetlands,
Yes, the
the delineated?
the delineator actually mapped them with GIS or with GPS, excuse me, in the field. And then we also GPS the survey so that we're all on state plane coordinates. So their work drops in data that we access, like contours from LiDAR from the state, and any of those other maps, like the IF&W maps. They all come in at the same coordinate system.
Because we're trying to build up our town database for wetlands.
yeah.
Can you share those?
When we finish up the plan, we can give you the final plan
Yeah.
in CAD or in ArcView shapes, if that's more helpful. I don't know what system you set up with.
We just have GIS. It's really like shape files. We don't have. CAD
Okay,
or
but we can export to shape files
You can
and
do
share
that.
those with you at the end of the project.
That'd be great.
Whatever.
What's
The-
that?
The, okay. never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it'd be helpful to have the lots, I'm sure, to add to the GIS as well.
Yeah. Yeah. If you could do that, and that would make.
Yeah.
Somebody.
That's
very.
in some towns, that is that's one of their conditions, but not everywhere. But we're happy to share that.
The information shared with the town.
Yeah, we have to, some towns we have to provide digital format.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think I think I went through this and everything was pretty good.
So there's no like stream crossing or anything?
No, it's just that one little wetland at the end of the road, and just some of our fill for the road extends in there. But what we'll do is the two driveways for those two lots will come off from that end, and they'll have to get a permit by rule for a crossing of that wetland.
Oh,
Yeah.
to fill it.
Well,
basically,
they'll put a pipe in, but they'll have to be, it won't be able to be just, it'll have to be a open bottom pipe so that you maintain
Well,
the ground cover underneath, so that you have access for the amphibians and so forth to move back and forth.
You're talking down on lots 3 and 4, right?
Yeah.
At the end, yeah.
Right at the end, and then the driveway will come off there. We proposed shared easement there at the end, so there's not two crossings of that wetland, so they cross once and then branch off.
Have you talked to DEP about this project at all yet?
No, we don't, with the 1,600 square feet, we don't trigger any permitting other than a permit, it's
Yeah,
the wetlands permit by rule is up to 4,300 square feet, so we really don't trigger anything, and we don't trigger anything on the stormwater because we're less than an acre of impervious. But Chris typically reviews projects for DEP, so he'll probably be reviewing this in the same same fashion he would review a DEP project.
That's,
So do you call that like an open box culvert?
Yeah, something like that. Sometimes they are arched. But
Is that something that we would require?
it normally wouldn't be required unless it's a stream, but I think it's probably one of the easiest ways to cross this one.
Yeah. I didn't,
Because they could probably do, just a half arch. We'll set it on some sort of pads on each side and gravel across.
I don't know, I think it's,
Because we want to maintain that flow.
you don't want to fight it, but
No.
yeah, that is not, that wetland is not regulated under our shoreland because it's just too small. But I asked about DEP because I'm running into some issues where they're telling people, no, you can't build there because it's a wetland, but our shoreland zoning doesn't address it. And which I'm not going to argue with DEP, but I
Yeah.
want to make sure I'm on the same page with them. So
Yeah,
we're not saying, yeah,
we're gonna
build
try to
it.
treat it as if it were a stream, though it isn't, just keep free flow and movement through there.
Yeah.
Anytime you try to block off, even if it's seasonal flow, you're gonna get some sort of erosion. You're just gonna have a maintenance issue going down the road, so
and
you could spend it now or spend it later, or spend it continuously.
it's probably connected with the wetland behind it. I mean, it's all those little bits are all connected back there.
Oh, I'm not sure that this one may at one end connect in, but I think it's really caused by the topography in this location.
So the only thing maybe I've got the conditions on here that I've proposed, which I don't know if you've read them, but I'll just go through them. If you have an issue with them or any of you have an issue with them, we can discuss it. But one is just that the vehicular access from lots 1 and 8 will not be from Main Street, which you addressed. It'll be from the road. The roads, this comes from the ordinances. All roads in the subdivision shall remain private roads, be maintained by the developer or the lot owners, and shall not be accepted or maintained by the town until they meet all municipal street design and construction standards and are approved as such by the legislative body of the town. The proposed street name will be submitted for review by the town's 911 coordinator, which is Mike Tatro, the code enforcement officer. And that may occur after the building permits are issued, but no individual lots may be sold prior to the naming of the proposed road. No individual lots may be sold until all the improvements are constructed. No individual lots may be sold until all the conditions of approval have been satisfied. And no building permits shall be issued by the town for any buildings within the subdivision until the completion of satisfaction or of all the conditions of approval. So I think most of those are probably in line with what the project was planning, but any issues there?
Has this gone to the fire department?
This has not gone to the fire department yet, no.
Just I'm guessing placement, and then we don't want to have a repeat of.
Yeah.
You need some farm.
Thank you.
That's where half of that language came from.
Yep.
Yeah, no, but I did you already talk with the fire chief about the location of the fire hydrant, or no, not yet?
No, we did
Okay.
not.
My thinking is that you're proposing a fire hydrant there. If the planning board's saying, yep, we're happy with one fire hydrant. This is bigger than just this application. That everything should still go through the fire, whether it's the chief or not, it's him or someone he's going to designate for review. If he's going to say, move the fire hydrant, that basically we're not issuing a building permit until the fire chief says, at least has a chance to say.
Sure, if he
move
wants it
stuff.
at a different location,
So,
we're happy to do that.
yeah, or change the turn, whatever it is. So some of that, not that I don't want the planning board to be considering it, but I also don't want the planning board to have to worry about fire code when it's not stuff we deal with. So,
That's why we have that in there to have it go to the fire chief.
yeah, well, and that's right. So I'm trying to kind of more formalize that planning board can approve, an application, but before a building permit gets pulled, all the technical stuff is gonna be checked still. Yeah, I think that what I'd like to do is send it to them if they have comments, but then they also get another bite at the apple at the end when they want to approve. When they want to apply any technical fire codes. But that's working on that, and I will be discussing it with you. Separate from. So I don't have anything else. Yeah, you got back to me about, I think, everything else that I just shared some comments with you the other day, and you got back to me, so yeah.
Anybody got any questions?
Do we need a site visit or not?
No.
Well, I think like we talked last time, if we walk out there, we're gonna see a bunch of trees in the woods.
That'd be just.
I mean, it really going from this plan and knowing the area, I mean, there's only so much that can happen there. I don't think it'd be beneficial.
Or anything else.
Yeah.
The road's not even, I mean, is this
No,
path?
road's not there.
There's a drive that was put in,
Yeah.
last year or so.
Is it in the same location as where you're proposing?
We're proposing the entrance more or less where it is. That wasn't the best spot to get a 90-degree
Mhm.
intersection, so we did slide it a little bit, but in that general area. Yeah, that one was sort of went in at an angle and, they wanted us to follow that to save a little bit of money, and we said, no, we need to be 90-degree intersections, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
All right, you
We're.
do any motions or completeness at this point, or?
Need to, I think.
Okay. Great.
Basically, you've satisfied whatever conditions you need to get to go to the
All right.
next step.
So we just submit to you for the
Yes.
final and for the, we'll be having a public hearing at the same
Yeah, I
time.
gotta check and make sure we need one. I think so, but either way, we
Great.
can.
One of
we
the
can
big,
coordinate on
the
it.
big concerns of the residents will be traffic. But
Yeah, we've
it's
addressed,
because cars are, there, it's become a real cut through and the traffic light on standpipes. for them
Standpipe,
these
yeah.
days.
Yeah, and just on, I know Wilder brought up the question. If all of these, I looked at based on the lot sizes and with. Some of them are big enough to have 2 dwelling units on them. Some of them are, but all, like you said, all of them are allowed to have an ADU because of the new state rules. So it is 8 lots. It could be up to 19 dwelling units. But even still, I think you said you're gonna restrict that.
yeah, I think we wanted to have one principal, and on the lots that could have more.
Yeah.
Would do 2 ADUs.
Okay, so that's.
Yeah,
Our ordinance wouldn't let you have 2 ADUs.
just
in-
one.
In this, yeah, in the rural, it's 1 ADU.
Okay,
I think lots.
but it'd let you
3
have 2 primaries.
On lots 3, 4, and 5, you have enough acreage for
Okay,
2 primaries and an ADU.
all right.
So, but it's, if you're gonna modify that's kind of up to you, but that,
Okay.
just so for the board to understand.
Yeah, and basically on the traffic, it's, in the peak hour for residential, it's 1 trip per dwelling unit per hour, so. If 8 or 16 spread over 60 minutes, it's still 1 every 4, 5, 6 minutes, 1 car is what the average is.
Yeah,
And
I think one development's not, it's not, that's the problem, is one's not gonna tip the scale, it's all of them together.
yes,
So. Okay.
thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Very clear,
Are we gonna,
very concise. We will like it.
All right,
You're gonna-
thank you.
invite the Vine Street? people?
Absolutely.
That's,
I'm fascinated.
Okay.
Why not? It won't take them long. If they make it quick, I'd love to have them. just officially. This is a concept presentation for
Yeah,
lot
map.
94-001-0 Vine Street.
Yeah,
Okay,
doesn't really have an address, but it's the same one that,
I know what it,
It's 0 Vine Street.
We all
I
know
think
where it
the
is.
way everyone refers
that's
to
what
it.
everybody's referring it to. Yeah.
Yeah. Hello,
Hi.
I'll be quick. My name is Shannon Parker. I am so grateful to be an add-on tonight, so thank you. I am a 20-year resident of Vine Street. And during my time as an in-town resident, I've seen several development ideas floated for like small scale residential, some large scale residential. At one time, Rising Tide was gonna build in that space. And these haven't come to fruition. I know there's traffic issues, there are wetland concerns, and it's not for me to know why these things didn't come to fruition. What I know is I've lived there for 2 decades and there's been no development, and it has not been developed for decades before I moved in. So I would like to stop saying no to projects and introduce something that might be a good fit for the town. Are you ready? I mean, are you all with bated breath? So this is a concept plan for a green space in Damariscotta in town. It is tentatively called Damariscotta Green. You can see the outline here. This blue outline is what you've seen before for the development plan that was in here in March. That's the same site plan. My frame is betraying me here. What I'm proposing is a intergenerational recreation space for our community. And it would have an entry here from Vine Street, a walking entry. And there's also an existing path from Chapman Street. This would be a place where conservation and recreation mindfully meet and overlap. In this section of this map, there is a large area of conservation that can be done to reestablish indigenous plants to help with a lot of the water runoff that we're seeing right now. And over here in this section, we have some opportunities to build some vignettes or experiential spaces for our community. So some things that are being floated is to just make this a microcosm of our town, to take all the big, bold, beautiful, rich things that are happening throughout our community and put them into the space. So instead of having a playground for kids, let's get teens over at the Carpenter's Boat Shop to build a wooden boat and put that in the sand and have toddlers ride in it, jump around it, like learning about what's happening in our area. Butterfly gardens, bird sanctuaries, an evergreen curtain around the entire place to reduce noise from Route 1. And there's lots more. I'm cognizant of time here, so I'll stop there. And if that's okay with you, I'll answer questions. It's a concept plan. I'll have the application in for the May meeting. But this is a different kind of development that I would like Damariscotta and the planning board and everybody watching from home to consider. I think it could have impact for the next 10 generations, and I think just takes a lot of people saying yes. I'm under contract with the Polans right now to purchase this property. I am on the purchase and sale agreement, but I will be buying it with people in the town who are coming with private money to make this happen. So really huge investment from a lot of community members. And then what I'd like to do is build it out with private funds and then work with the town eventually to turn it over to a green space that the town would own and maintain if that's something that the town would like. But I see that as a 5-year project to get everything through the 3 phases of building. There's no hardscape in this building. It's all restoring natural habitat, really. We'd have an 8-foot wide walking trail around the property for multiple mobilities, for people with multiple mobilities. And we have to, of course, be mindful of any of the right of ways that Great Salt Bay Sanitary has and setbacks.
Where do you park your car when you come to this?
Great question. So right now we don't have vehicle access, but we have a plethora of parking in this area of Damariscotta. And it exists at the Yellowfront Coastal Marketplace area. So I have a couple of ways to get to parking. We have, and I can't promise anything yet, but I will say that I am being inventive about perhaps renting that old Camden National Bank space that's there, which gets us access to the parking associated with it. There's also the Historical Society that has some parking, and there is a building for sale on I think it's Church Street, but Chapman right now, that it directly abuts. And so we are looking at ways to purchase that property and then have that be the parking lot that feeds into this. So while this plan cannot at this point incorporate parking, it is part of our plan.
I don't
Sure.
think it necessarily has to incorporate parking, because it's an in-town space. And, you know, like the mile. The
Ledyard
Damariscotta
Mile.
mile walk.
Yeah.
Which this connects to.
Yeah,
On the same hand, just like the project that last time, everybody was concerned about parking on
Mhm.
Vine Street.
Yeah.
Same thing is gonna happen here. If somebody comes down Vine Street to visit this location, where are they gonna park?
Park on the street.
Exactly.
So I've thought about that, and there's going to be a space that would be for maybe 2 cars for anybody who needed maybe handicapped access or just access there. There'd be signage. My driveway is the last one on the road, and anybody who drives down the road and has to turn around, including the mailman, turns around in it every day. So we would make that a really common space for 2 cars to be able to park. That is very different than 20 units at the end of Vine Street. Yes, I mean, it's of the ways that, how do we get the most community members to access this? Right now, we have a very walkable downtown, but I see people come down Vine Street and sort of stand at the end and go, they're looking at this forested area going,
How do
is
I
there a
get there?
trail? Can I do more? So if we build it, we can build a loop back to downtown. I'm hoping we can be creative about where we find parking in other places. To stay away from Main Street too. I mean, these side streets, they have the capacity for vehicles for a community park. There's not gonna be 200 people there a day. And there will be no services there, no bathrooms. So like, you're gonna go to the park for as long as you can go to the park, and then you need to go home, right? It'll be minimum, it would be open dawn to dusk kind of thing. We're hoping for solar lights. Minimal impact to the land, maximum use for citizens of all ages. So I would like a 4-year-old to be there with an 84-year-old and both be in that comfortable space without the threat of cars. And I don't know, just a little bit of respite.
I would suspect that it would be predominantly used by people walking in there, you know, locally to the neighborhoods anyway.
Yeah.
Look, and there is, you know, on-street parking adjacent to it, different locations.
We've got Rising Tide and Coastal Marketplace that they sell lunches and dinners, and people can walk over and eat those sandwiches there. There could be meetings happening in those areas by using the adjacent parking lots. We have a lot of downtown parking space in that section. So to not add hardscape would be ideal in my mind.
Yep.
But to increase access, of course, we want to make sure that as many people can get to it as possible. That is the concept. It aligns with the town plan. This is the section of the comprehensive plan that outlines this particular area where conservation is a boon to our area and might be something to consider. Do you have other questions? I'll keep going through my. There is a website developed for this space. It's called damariscottagreen.com. You can go and check it out if you like. These are different sort of vignettes or experiential rooms where people can go and have like, we'll have a veterans memorial, a reflection garden, just places where people can feel at home, because we're bringing in some greater part of our community into this space. Very much community minded. We're looking for support for it. We are very much on our way and bolstered by that. But we've got about 100 days before we close. So about halfway there.
Good.
I think it's a fantastic.
Yeah,
I love this. Thank you very much.
Thank you for all the nods. It's really great. I'm not in the habit of saying no. It bores me to say no to something too many times. So I say, like, how can we say yes? How can we use this property that's been undeveloped for so long, for many, many reasons? How can we use this very rare in-town property to serve our citizens, to give back really. And this is the initial plan. So
Great.
any other questions?
You
Comments?
answered, you said you have it under contract. That was my main question.
Me too.
So other than that, I think it's, I mean, there will be plenty more questions.
Yes.
Have you, I imagine you have spoken with, many of your neighbors, and are they excited or?
Very much so. In fact, some of them are birders and are giving me the list. If you go to the website, you'll see like how many birds visit Church Street in a year and like the 20, I don't know, 60 or so varieties of them. And other people are very much into the natural plant life. And so they've been kind of, we haven't owned this property, but we've been carefully kind of looking out for it, right? And the wildlife that exists there and the wildflowers. And so I think they feel like, okay, this is our opportunity to like be part of this. So they're very supportive.
Yeah.
So that's all the abutting neighbors on Church Street there and neighbors as well on Vine Street.
Yeah.
So we are the largest abutter of this property. Our whole property line abuts this 0 Vine Street. So we have had the benefit of living with a forested, undeveloped land for a very long time. I just think we could do better than for more people to be able to use it. Yeah. So.
And I'm just curious, is the intention to leave it fairly natural and kind of only put paths in?
Yeah.
Disturb it enough to basically allow access, or
Yeah.
is it kind of to be more manicured?
Yeah, great question. So there's actually, like I said, 2 sections. This section here would be more of that natural space where we have some wetland areas, and so there'd be more wildflower paths and hidden gardens, benches where you could sit but not really know that anyone else was on the trail kind of thing, And then here we have a little bit more room for more permanent spaces for like, I don't know, groomed lawn or maybe a gazebo over time. I would really like to see a place for teens. I'd like to get them out of the parking lots of the downtown spaces. I think that we need to mindfully plan for all ages here, and that upper space this year would allow for that. So,
My limited experience with teens, they gather where they can get their cars together and talk out the window to each other.
yeah.
That doesn't have such a.
Yeah, except my property that abuts it might, because my husband can talk about cars all day long, so could be the problem. But you're right? We're not setting up a place where.
You can run a skateboard.
Yeah, I'd love to see kids be able to skate healthily and safely in town. The Y does so much for our community, but we don't have a place for kids who, can freely go to a place and be kids. Outside.
Not to associate the two in any way, but I would give real thought to safety and
Yeah,
that critique,
for sure.
because I know it's going to come up, and
Yeah.
you want to make sure that.
For sure. I mean, it's a plot of land now, and we haven't seen anybody use it or abuse it in any way. It abuts the Yellowfront parking lot. To your point earlier about cars, we've never seen 6 or 10 cars gathered there. I hope that doesn't happen, but we'll of course be mindful of it and put measures in place. We're hoping to lean on nature a lot for that, right? Dusk till dawn hours, and we'll just have to have a team of volunteers patrolling it, but there's no shortage of volunteers who are ready to like come to this project. It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine that because there's a decent amount of neighbors, especially on Church Street,
Yeah.
that they're going to be watching, or hope if they can see it, they'll be watching it.
What is
Yeah.
the total size?
It's about 1.6 acres.
And is that the entirety of the Poland property?
Nope, this section here is cut off for a butter property. So this outside blue line is the total property.
Okay, but it doesn't extend kind of towards.
It does
me
not,
anymore. Okay,
no.
that's.
Nope. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's it. These are just illusions of spaces that will exist. There's nothing permanent planned, like I said. Always being careful of any kind of waterways and or setbacks by any of the companies that serve. There's a well spring there as well. So, yeah. All right, so I'm going to do my final pitch at Damariscottagreen.com. I think it's great if community goes there and gets familiar with it. There's an email there. I can answer questions. It's exciting. I can tell by your exhausted faces, you're also excited, which is awesome. But I really do appreciate your time.
A whole lot better fit than a bunch of apartment houses.
Yeah.
By far. So, yeah,
It's very cool.
nice
Great.
idea.
Thanks. All right, well, I will let you guys get back to your families and your lives.
And actually, that whole area has a long history of used by townspeople. I mean, wasn't there a skating rink back
There
there?
was, yeah.
Back where the parking lot was.
Before me.
Yeah, so there are pictures, I can't get them from the Historical Society, and I thought they were on Lincoln County News, but I've been trying to get them for weeks now of like mid 1800s, women and men and children skating in that wetland area that it now abuts the Yellowfront parking lot.
It was where yellow right here.
Yes, right, yeah,
Entire thing.
Yeah.
The lumberyard next door.
right, yeah,
Yeah, that was a huge swamp.
yeah. Anyway, so maybe returning to our roots in some ways, not necessarily a new concept, but just making it new for 2025 and beyond.
Calvin Dodge would have pictures of that.
Yes, that's a good place to go. All right, well, thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for
Everything you do for the town.
action.
Great, right?
Thanks.
Thanks.
I did ask.
Why is he here? Why are you here?
Can I make?
What are you doing here? You got a service call or what?
Want to take one for you? Probably
Can I make a motion that we adjourn?
Oh, I just want to know what he was doing here. I had no idea. Well, yeah, make a motion.
We adjourn.
Do I make it, well, Michael, do you have?
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm happy
Okay.
to save it.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Oh, do I have a second? All those in favor? All those opposed?